If you received a result from the problem clarity check saying your buyer is too broad, then your message may have a buyer clarity leak. That means people may be seeing your content, but they may not know whether it is actually for them. This is one of the most common problems I see with solopreneurs. They're afraid that if they get too specific, they will leave people out. So they keep the message broad. They say things like, I help entrepreneurs grow, or I help professionals communicate better, or I help people become more confident, or I help business owners create more freedom. Now, all that sounds inclusive, but it often creates a different kind of problem. The right buyer does not recognize herself in what you've just said. And when the right buyer does not recognize herself, she does not move closer to a buying decision. She may like the post. She may agree with the idea. She may think you sound smart, but she does not think this is for me. That is the phrase you're trying to earn, not from everyone, just from the right person. And this is where a lot of solopreneurs get nervous. They think specificity means limitation. But in marketing, specificity often creates relief. When a buyer sees herself clearly named, she does not feel excluded, she feels found. That is very different. Think about the difference between these two lines. I help entrepreneurs improve their messaging versus I help female solopreneurs explain what they do so buyers stop nodding politely and start understanding why they need your help. The second one is longer, yes, but it gives the buyer something to grab onto. Female solopreneur explaining what she does, buyers nodding politely, people not understanding why they need help. That is a world. That is a situation, and that is a person. And that is what your message needs to convey. The goal is not to describe every possible person you could help. The goal is to help the right person recognize that she is in the right place. The problem clarity check result is probably pointing to this. Your message may be too open ended. And open ended messages ask the buyer to do all this extra work. The buyer has to ask, is this for coaches? Is this for consultants? Is this for beginners? Is this for people who already have an offer? Is this for someone like me? That's too much guessing. And when buyers have to guess, many of them leave. So here's your first repair step. Go to your LinkedIn headline or your homepage hero section or your webinar or video title or your offer description. Look for the first place where you name the buyer. If the buyer is described as entrepreneurs or business owners or leaders or professionals or just people, ask yourself, is that specific enough for the person I most want to attract? Now, sometimes it will be, but often it will not. That's what I've learned. So try this sentence. This is for insert a specific person who is struggling with insert a specific problem and wants insert a specific result. Here's an example. This is for female solopreneurs who are posting consistently but not getting enough real client conversations. That is much easier to understand than this is for entrepreneurs who want better marketing. Here's another example. This is for consultants and coaches whose content gets profile engagement but does not create enough buyer movement. That tells the right person, oh, this is about me. That's the whole point. Your message should not make the buyer hunt for herself. She should be able to spot herself quickly and easily. Now, this does not mean you can never serve people outside that category. Of course you can. But public messaging has to create recognition first. Broad messaging often feels safe to the business owner, but specific messaging feels safer to the buyer. That is the big shift. So, your quick assignment is this: write down your best fit buyer in one sentence, not just demographics, not just a niche label. Use this structure. I work best for insert a type of person who is already what they are now doing, but struggling with some specific stuck point. For me, at the Pipeline Authority, an example would be I work best with solopreneurs who are already posting, emailing, or teaching online, but still are not getting enough buyer response because their message is not clear enough to be understood. That sentence does a lot of work. It names the person, it names their activity, it names what they're stuck on, it names the reason they're stuck. That is what buyer clarity should be doing. The Pipeline Authority's reframe is this: if your buyer cannot tell whether your message is for her, she will not work hard to find out. That's not because she is uninterested, it is because she is busy. So make the invitation obvious. Your next step: pick one place where your buyer is named too broadly. Rewrite it with more specificity. Then use that sentence in your next post, profile section, webinar or video opening section, or email. You do not need to rebuild your whole business. You need to help the right buyer recognize herself faster and easier. That is the repair. And when I host a live problem clarity repair clinic, this is one of the first things we always look at. Where is the right buyer named clearly? Where is she missing? And where is your message making her do too much work? So start there, because buyer recognition is not a detail, it's the doorway. Repair one sentence today. This is for insert a specific person who is struggling with a specific problem. So after you've completed the problem clarity check, your results included a link to take your next step in your journey, which is to find out where your pipeline is leaking. When you take the client flow score diagnostic, that's what you will learn. And you'll find the link to that free diagnostic on this page.